Hello YouTube, this is Jeff. Welcome to CSS for Layout Part 3. And in this video we are going to take a list of navigation links and turn them into a professional looking navigation bar. So I've made some minor changes between this video and the last, and primarily just to the color. I chose this red background color and then a slightly darker red for our navigation div. I've also changed the font here to Verdana and made it white so it stands out. Let's jump over to Dreamweaver, and here you can see I have a body tag with the margin and the padding set to 0, and that's good. But my UL, which is the tag that I've used to create this unordered list of links, is also in here, and the margin set to 0. So the margin padding being set to 0 is why these bullets are hanging outside the edge. It's not too critical because we're actually going to remove those bullets in these steps. So I'm going to remove the UL selector from that selector, and then when I refresh the page we'd see we have our margin back. Okay, now I have taken the nav div and moved it down here, right here, and I've created a comment that says navigation style start here. So we have a number of different selectors that I've built, and because this can be a little tedious to sit and watch me type all of this, what I've done is I've gone ahead of time and typed it out and then commented it. So I'll be stepping through the code, uncommenting it as we go, and revealing the display. So first, in the navigation ID, we have a background color, and I've set it to that dark red color. We have the font family Tahoma, which I think looks nice as a sans serif font for links, and the font size is 12 points. Now the height for the navigation bar is going to be important because we want it to look like a bar with buttons. So I've chosen 40 pixels, so I'm going to move my comment line like that, and when we refresh, now you can see that that div has shrunken to 40 pixels in height. So now I need to adjust my UL, my unordered list, and here I've written a compound selector. So the reason why I have the hashtag nav in front of the UL is because I'm being very specific. I want this property to only apply to unordered lists that are inside of the nav div, that pound nav. If I have an unordered list anywhere else in my copy, I don't want it to be affected by my styles that I'm using for my navigation. So all of these are compound selectors, and they have the elements that I'm using, the HTML elements like UL, LI for the list item, and A for the link, the hyperlink. But I've added the hashtag nav in front of it to make it more explicit. So this is called a compound selector, and both of these situations have to be true in order for this property change to take effect or to be applied to that specific element. Okay, so let's look at what I've done here under my unordered list. This is pretty simple. I set my margin padding to 0, just like I had previously. Let's move this down. Except instead of it being linked with those other selectors, I've just called it out. There we go. So this looks like what I had before. And actually, we can save this and preview in Firefox. And we see what we had before, except our nav div, the background, has shrunk to that 40px. Okay, so next we adjust the list items. So here I have the nav list items. We'll expand this. Oops. There we go. And what I've done is I've set the display property to inline. So display has two choices, inline and block. Those are the two major choices. So I've chosen inline because list items are normally block elements. They each start a new line. But I want this to be a navigation bar, a list of links, but that go across the screen, sort of like the menu buttons in an application do up here, sort of rolling across. I want it to function like that. So setting the display to inline will get them to go across the page instead of one after the other. There we go. And you can see my bullet has actually disappeared in the process. But if you're worried about that, you could also, under UL, we could set the list style to none. This is where you would change that. So let's do that. There we go. Just so that there are no defaults in the way. And we can preview this in Firefox. And now we can see our links. Of course, the blue or purple do not show up well against this dark red background. So we're going to use white for our text color there. And that happens inside our A tag, our A selector. So here we have another compound selector, which is nav A, and this will affect all the links that are inside our navigation div. Let's remove this. Let's move this comment down. So next we change the text to white, and then we adjust the text decoration. That's the underline. So here you can see these links have an underline by default. When I set the text decoration to none, we get rid of the underline. Let's make this type bold, which is font weight, and we can choose different weights there, but we can also select bold, and that will make our font bold. There we go. And in the case of if you have a heading element, sometimes you want it to be normal or not bold, and you also do that with font weight. I'm not too happy with the way this looks because it's so close to my heading, so I'm going to remove that again. There we go. I'm happy with that. Okay, next, these links are very close together, and I want them to appear more like menu items, so I want to create a space around it, or otherwise known as padding. So I've got a padding set here to 8 pixels. There we go. We have some space on the left and the right. Now our background color we're going to change to a darker red. There it is. Actually, it's not a dark red. It is the same color as our background nav, but it is darker than our background for our heading. Now, one of the issues we're having here is that they are not centered inside our nav, and that has to do with the origin point. So if I can illustrate that if I change the color here to green, we can see that they're not really centered inside our div. So that's a problem. If I move my comment here and I float the A element, if I float it left, that fixes that. So now everything has been taken out of the normal flow of type and shifted to the left side. I'm going to put my color tag back in. Here we go. And we don't see the difference, but the reason why we've programmed that background color in is because we're going to have that background color shift when the mouse rolls over it. Okay, so next we're going to set some borders on the left and on the right. So one of them is going to be lighter and the other one is going to be darker. Try to create a 3D effect. So we'll just move this down here. There we go. So now we have sort of a beveled effect going on. Save this. And we can preview this in Firefox. And there we go. Now we've got these little buttons. Now the problem with changing the style of links is that they're no longer recognizable as traditional or classic hyperlinks. Whenever we do that, we're sort of redesigning our user interface, and we obviously can't go door to door training users on how to use our website. So what we need to do is make it somewhat intuitive. One way we can make our links on a navigation bar intuitive for users, most of the typical users online, is by creating a rollover effect, some kind of a shift in the presentation. Usually it's subtle, but it identifies the link as something you can click on. Now when we roll over these links, the mouse or the cursor changes, but we want something slightly more visible. The way we create a rollover effect with links is we use a pseudo class. So the A selector is here, and what I can use is A:hover, and what that will do is that will change the properties that are designated here when and only when the mouse rolls over the link, when it's detected that it's hovering over the link. So the simple change I made was I changed the background color to a lighter color, so it'll become highlighted when we roll over it. And we can't preview this here in our design mode, so we'll go over to Firefox and we'll preview this. And here we go. Now you can see the rollover effect. This is a pretty neat effect. The design here is pretty common across the web, and you can kind of mix and match different styles to create different effects. You could also use images for the backgrounds instead of just simple solid colors, but sometimes less is more, and with a simple navigation bar like this you can achieve a professional look that's also easy to use for a majority of users. Thanks for watching.